Here is Beth-shean. You see, this is a tell. That mountain area is called a tell. And that has so many different levels. In the times of the Bible, the different time periods, what does a tell really mean? Well, a tell has a level of cities, different cities. A city was built and destroyed, and then another city was built upon it and destroyed, and another city from a different time period was built. And you see that here with this tell at Beth-shean. Wow. In the Old Testament, we see there are many kings. The first king of Israel was who? It was Saul. He had the first kingdom, and then he handed his kingdom over to who? David. And his name sign is like this. King Saul had a son, one son, and his son's name was Jonathan. And David was best friends with Jonathan. They were best friends. They really loved one another as friends. In the Old Testament, later we see the king Saul became jealous of David, and he wanted to kill David, and he was so angry and jealous because he knew that later David would become king. And on one occasion, David was being chased by King Saul because he wanted to kill David. But you see, David really respected King Saul, and they were in a cave. And then David took part of Saul's robe. You see, David could have killed him, but he didn't want to do that because he respected the king. He respected King Saul. So he just tore a piece of his cloth from his robe to show King Saul, I could have killed you, but I respect you because you're God's chosen and anointed king. Wow. Later, there were many more wars, and then later, finally, there was a group of evil people that we see in 1 Samuel 31, the Philistines, who came against Saul and his sons and all of Israel. And then they hurt King Saul. The Philistines hurt him, and then King Saul begged his armor bearer, his servant, to kill him, but the servant refused to kill him. And then King Saul took his own sword and killed himself. And also King Saul's sons had all died as well. And then later the Philistines found out that they were all dead, and they were so excited that King Saul and his sons had died that they cut their heads off and took their heads and put them in the idol temple. The sons' heads were also decapitated and put in the idol temple as well. And they took the armor and the shield. The armor and the shield, and put them as well in the idol temple. This was an insult to God. And then King David saw this, and he was so upset. He was angry and sad. Oh, he was so mad. He was so angered against the Philistines that they took the bodies of the king and his sons and hung them on the wall to show all the people everywhere, the wall at Beth-shean, as we see here. You see far in the distance near the tree, that was probably the area where the bodies were hung on the wall of Beth-shean. King David was very saddened and very upset. And this comes from the Old Testament. We see in Samuel 1:1-16. David was so sad that he spoke out against Mount Gilboa. The name of that mountain was Gilboa. He spoke against it. He said that nothing would grow on that mountain, and still today, nothing grows there on that mountain. It's barren. There are no trees. There's no growth there because he spoke against it. Wow. David respected King Saul, and he respected his dear and precious friend, Jonathan. David promised Jonathan that he would not harm his family. And then later, he didn't destroy his family. Later, he found his son, the son of Jonathan, and his name was Mephibosheth. And we find that in 2 Samuel chapter 9. He was a young man. He was very young during the war, and he was being carried by his nurse. And the nurse ran and fell and dropped him, causing him to become injured, and then he was never able to walk. He was disabled. Later, David found this son of Jonathan and welcomed Mephibosheth to come and sit and eat at the king's table. So you see, David had respect, and he honored the kingdom of Saul. David really felt love for the king. And David was a man who wanted to follow the heart of God and honor God. Let's respect and honor God. Let's follow God's heart. Wow. We've learned so many stories here. And truly, it's so important to respect and honor the Lord. Beth-Shean is here. And let's remember. Remember.